"There's something about this case that I can't quite put my finger on," said Dr. Adrian Voss, a renowned forensic psychologist. "I agree," Detective Inspector Davies replied, leaning back in his chair. "That's why you're here, Doctor, to help me catch a serial killer. Over the past year, 4 young women had been found murdered in as many months, each killed in a different part of the city, each posed in an obscene parody of a famous artwork. The press had dubbed the killer the Artisan, a name that both fascinated and enraged the public, and it was this notoriety that had brought Adrian into the case. But as Adrian listened to the detective's grim summary of the crimes, he couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to the case than met the eye. There was something deeply unsettling about the meticulous nature of the killings, something that resonated with a primal fear buried deep within his subconscious. The artisan's calling card, a small porcelain doll, placed beside the body of each victim, was a particularly disturbing touch. According to the available evidence, the killer had carefully selected his victims, all of whom were artists or art students. He lured them to secluded locations, where he then proceeded to murder them in a horrifying display of violence. Each victim's body was then posed to resemble a famous piece of art, a macabre form of expression that was both shocking and disturbing. As Adrian examined the evidence, including the dolls, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. The more he learned about the case, the more he felt as though he was stepping into a nightmare. It was as if the killer had carefully crafted each detail of the crime to evoke a primal fear that lurked within him, a fear that he had long since buried. One evening, while poring over the case files, Adrian experienced a sudden and unexpected flashback. He found himself standing in a dark and narrow corridor, the walls closing in on him, the air thick with the smell of decay and despair. At the end of the hall, he could hear the faint sound of a woman's voice, her pleas for help echoing through the darkness. But when he tried to move towards the sound, he found himself frozen in place, unable to move or speak. It was as if the hallway itself was holding him captive. Struggling to break free from the grip of the vision, Adrian stumbled back to his office, his heart pounding in his chest. There, in the dimly lit room, surrounded by the cold, hard evidence of the case, he tried to piece together the fragments of his memory. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the visions weren't just random occurrences. They were somehow connected to the case, to the killer, and perhaps even to himself. With each passing day, the line between Adrian's sanity and madness became increasingly blurred. The visions grew more intense, more frequent, and more terrifying. He began to see the faces of the victims in the crowd, to hear their voices whispering to him in the dead of night, and the porcelain dolls seemed to stare back at him with accusing eyes. Then came the day when Adrian's worst fears were confirmed. A routine background check revealed a shocking truth. One of the victims' families had ties to Adrian's own past, a past that he had long since tried to forget. Suddenly, the memories that had been haunting him began to flood back, bringing with them a torrent of pain and anguish. He remembered the dark, oppressive house where he had grown up, the constant fear that had been his companion, the manipulative whispers of his parents, the secrets they had kept from him. And then there were the dolls, the porcelain dolls that had been his only solace in a world of pain. Dolls that his mother had made him swear to secrecy about, claiming that they were cursed and would bring bad luck to anyone who knew their secret. But it was the face of the killer that terrified him the most, a face that was all too familiar, a face that stared back at him with a chilling recognition. In a moment of horrifying clarity, Adrian understood. He and the killer were more than just colleagues and quarry. They were connected by a bond of blood, by a shared history, by a legacy of darkness that had been passed down to him from his own family. As the truth of his own identity and the killer's motives finally came to light, Adrian found himself at a crossroads. Would he embrace the darkness within him, or would he fight to extinguish it? The answer, he knew, lay somewhere in the depths of his fractured psyche, buried beneath a lifetime of pain, fear, and betrayal.